You awake?
Yeah, of course I'm awake. Is that a new mask?
Oh, yeah.
I love it. It's really creepy.
I know, right?
Yeah, good stuff.
Thanks.
Hey, let me introduce myself. My name is, and proud of it, and all dads should be.
Dad. Why? You know why. Kids think we're awesome. We get our hands messy. We tell hilarious jokes. Hey, Nolan, we gotta get up, buddy.
Wake up, big lazy.
We never say no to dress up. We build the best forts.
We do work, and we do homework. We lead by example, we blow their minds.
Can't believe he's his father.
I know, that is called a plot twist. Being awesome isn't about breaking rules, it's about making them. Hot stuff coming through. Wife and the coffee. And breakfast is for breakfast. Hey, Nolan, give me a look here. Suggestion, that's a boy, that's a man. But it's also for lunch, dinner, and midnight snacks. Scraped knees aren't boo-boos, they are badges of bravery on the playground. Hey, Victoria, that profile pic? Awesome. When you're a dad, hugs can be bear hugs, but they can also be high fives, fist bumps, and next level handshakes. Kids, they're our best friends. They're our greatest fans.
Buddy, you've been gaining muscle mass. Nice.
And they look to us like the same way we look at superheroes, up, because we're taller. Now, dadhood isn't always easy. When a rule is broken, we're the enforcement. Hey, buddy, it's garbage day. But when a heart is broken, we're the reinforcement. And we wouldn't have it any other way, because being a dad is awesome. Just like new peanut butter Cheerios are awesome. That's why it's the official cereal of dadhood. And this, my friends, this has had a dad.
So I had to use that as our intro tonight because I saw that this past week. Any of you guys seen that on Facebook or on TV or anything like that? Y'all seen that? I'm not trying to promote peanut butter Cheerios or anything like that, but I'm sure they're good. But I just love the fact that I love the positive focus on what it means to be a dad. And the fact is that it's not about the doom and gloom and the challenge and all these kind of things and all the sucky dads out there and all that kind of stuff. It's about the fact that dadhood and being a father is awesome and it's amazing. And I hope that everybody that is sitting in this room, you celebrate that. You celebrate the challenge that is ahead, and you also celebrate the opportunity that is there as well. You guys, we're continuing tonight the Parenthood series. And let me see if I can capture a conversation that perhaps has been in your home. You got mom here talking to a child. Say, didn't mommy ask you to pick up your toys? We're going to turn the TV off and clean up now, okay? Can you get up and turn the TV off, please? When your daddy gets home, we're going to talk about this. Come on. We got homework to do, and your room needs to be clean. Don't make me come over there. I'll turn that TV off. You turn the TV off right now. It's time to do your homework. I'm going to count to 3. That's it. 1, 2, 2.5, 3, 4, 5. I can only get to 5. No. You had a conversation like that? Maybe you've been on the receiving end of a conversation like that before. Anybody had your parents do that to you before? Yeah, man. Honestly, here's the question. How many of you guys that are in this room listening to that little interaction comment, you know what? Yeah, I've had part of that in my home before. Yeah. Guys, tonight we're in week 3 of Parenthood. We're in week 3 of talking about this beautiful, amazing opportunity we have to be parents on this planet. The first week we talked about transferring dependence from us unto the Lord, helping our homes to be God-centered rather than child-centered. Last week we had an opportunity to talk about the 3 unchanging truths of parenthood: time, talk, and touch. We talked about these unchanging truths, and tonight we're going to talk about something that's a little bit more challenging, a little bit less fun to talk about, but man, it is something that is so critical for us to talk about as parents. Tonight we're going to talk about discipline. We're going to talk about those boundaries. We're going to talk about what it means to discipline children. You know, whenever Rachel and I, early on, whenever we had Elizabeth and we had the one child, it is amazing to me how discipline worked when we had one. It was actually relatively easy. There were things here and there, but the fact is with that one, there was double coverage, right? I mean, there were two of us, there was one child, and we were able to set boundaries, we were able to establish. It didn't mean it was easy, as in like it wasn't challenging as a parent, but the fact is there were two of us. There were two of us, and there was one child. And then we said, okay, well, we're going to have another child, right? And so we thought we were going to go from double coverage to man-to-man coverage. And the next thing you know, God has this hilarious sense of humor. And we went from 1 to 3. So we went from we went from double coverage to the zone defense, all in a matter of just, well, 40 weeks, right? You know, and so we did that, and then from then on, we've been in zone coverage ever since. Now we're kind of like, okay, you take those half, I'll take this half, and let's go make this thing happen. You know, I mean, that's just kind of our home. And the fact is that discipline, it's challenging, it's hard. It's one of those things that is very hard for us as parents to do, and it's most challenging to stay consistent with, I think. So tonight we're going to talk about discipline. But here's how we're going to define discipline. Are you ready? We're going to define discipline this way. Discipline is correction driven by love. Discipline is correction driven by love. And the fact is, it's correction not because we're powerful and we can make kids do what we want them to do. It's not about that. It's about the fact that our hearts are longing to love our children. And that's what drives the correction for kids. Any other way, we're off target. Hebrews chapter 12, verses 5 and 6 says, "My son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline, and do not lose heart when he rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines those he loves." So discipline equals love. And that's where we're going to be tonight. Proverbs 19:18, "Discipline your son, for in that there is hope. Do not be a willing party to his death." Discipline equals hope. Man, all of a sudden, you guys, we start talking about discipline and the room gets heavy, does it not? The room gets challenging because we look at this and we go, oh, it's such a hard topic. But the fact is that if you look at Scripture, discipline is a very positive thing. It's actually not an overbearing, burdensome thing. It's something that equals love, and it's something that equals hope. But here's why it's so heavy. It's so heavy because in every one of our homes, there is a major battle going on for who is going to be in charge. In every home, there is a major battle going on for who is going to be in charge of our households. And parents, this is a battle we must win. And not only win, we must win decisively. We are the ones who are in charge of our households. This is very important for us to make sure that we establish this. But tonight, if you find yourself, and you think back this last week, and you think about the conversations in your home, especially with your children, and if it's full of constantly nagging, yelling, bribing, threatening, counting, you're losing this battle. If that's what discipline looks like in your home, you're losing. And tonight we want to talk about ways that we can actually win, because guys, that tide has to turn, because it is sending the wrong message about our relationship with God the Father. Remember, we are the tangible evidence of the love of God the Father. And if we give our kids any hint that they controlled God, then we are sending them on a wild goose chase that's going to give them a very challenging future. And so tonight we're going to talk about this. And you're sitting here now, you're going, man, Danny, I don't want to discipline. I don't want to be mean to my kids. I don't want to discipline. I don't want to be mean to my kids, Danny. But here's the deal tonight, guys. Discipline is not something you do to your kids. But discipline is something you do for your kids. Discipline is not something you do to your child, but it's something that you do for your child. Zig Ziglar has this great quote. He says, "A child who has not been disciplined with love by his little world, your home, will be disciplined without love by the great big world. So guys, you see what we're setting them up for. We got to make sure that we discipline with love while they're underneath our umbrella. Because there's going to come a point when they get outside of that umbrella and life's going to punch them in the face. And so we need to remember that. So discipline is correction driven by love. Now guys, this is not surprising what I'm about to say, but if we look here and you look at your kids, and if you think your kids, you see them, you go, man, they're out of control. They are going crazy. They're all over the place. I can't get them to do what I need them to do. Everything is just challenging here. If you find yourself in this situation tonight, here's the hard truth about that. It's not your kids' fault. It's not on your kids. It's important for us to understand that the problem we have, and when I was a student pastor, I used to always say this phrase, any problem I ever see with a student, I never blame the student, I blame their mom and dad. Any decision that they made, anything that happened, because the problem is not the kiddos. The problem is not the children in the home. The problem is the parents. And the fact is that if there are undisciplined kids, that equals undisciplined parents. And that's the hard thing. That's why this subject is so heavy. And nobody likes to talk about it. Nobody likes to touch it, but we have a responsibility as a church. We've got to talk about this. This is an important thing for us to get. And so what I wanted to do for just a moment is I wanted to just kind of talk about 3 different categories of parents. And we're going to try to keep this light and try to not be oppressive in this, but there's three kind of parents that I want to address tonight in this kind of undisciplined category. The first category is called lifeguard parents. Now, lifeguard parents are those parents who often rescue a child from consequences. You know, little Bobby or little Billy is having a hard time, he's in trouble, and Supermom comes in and rescues him, right? A lifeguard parent often rescues a child from their consequences. The question is, how do you know if you fall in the category of a lifeguard parent? Well, let's just take, for example, this last semester. If you found yourself taking meals to your child 3 times during the semester because they forgot their lunch, and you ended up going 3 times this last semester to take them their lunch, and your kid is in college, you might be a lifeguard parent, you know? I mean, this is it. They got to sweep in and rescue this poor, pitiful 20-year-old. Galatians 6:7. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Guys, a lifeguard parent doesn't allow their children to face the consequences of their sins. Man, that's a hard one. A lifeguard parent doesn't allow their children to face the consequences of their sins because a man reaps what he sows. In other words, here's the deal. God set this up very specifically, very intentionally, and very beautifully, actually. In his divine economy, he set the world up with consequences. A little side note. This is why the everybody wins mentality doesn't work. All right? That's just a little freebie at this point now. If you're associated with something that everybody wins in, that is not life. That's not the way that it works. Okay, so be thinking about that and rethink that a little bit. But in God's divine economy, he set the world up with a system of consequences. And the fact is, if you live according to his word, there's blessing. There's very, very positive consequences. There's very good things that come when we live according to his word. But obviously, if we step outside of that, and we step outside of the parameters that he has set, in that moment, we understand that there will be negative consequences associated with that. Guys, the thing that we have to do as parents is give our children the gift of facing consequences for bad decisions. We have to give our children this gift. This is a very important gift for all children to be able to receive from parents, facing consequences for poor choices. I mean, your kid comes to you, it's the end of the semester, and he's been supposed to have been working on a science fair project all semester long. Comes to you, and the science fair project is not done. The lifeguard parent, what does the lifeguard parent do? Oh my gosh, you cannot get a bad grade on this, and so therefore let us just come in and I will help you. Right? You've seen those awesome science fair projects that the first grader did. It's like a rocket that flies off into the space. You know, it's awesome. It's like, wow, that's the prodigy, right? You know, it's amazing. You know, same thing, lunch, okay? Lunch money, all right? Lunch money. Your kid, you give them their lunch money, they go to school and they buy bubble gum and Coca-Cola. What does the lifeguard parent do? Oh no, you don't have any money anymore. Well, let me give you some more. No, gosh, no, please, no. If they choose to spend it on bubble gum and Coca-Cola, that's what they ate for lunch. I hope that bubble gum is satisfying. You know, that's it. No, they need to understand that if they choose to spend all of their money on this, that's what you choose to spend the money on. That's what you've been entrusted with, so therefore that's your decision. I promise you, it will only happen 1 or 2 times. And they will realize bubble gum, while it tastes wonderful, it lasts a whole lot less time than food in their stomach. I can promise that. You know, speaking of food in the stomach, this is a hard one. Rachel and I, man, I tell you what, we had a challenging time. We got some hard-headed kids, praise Jesus, right? We got some hard-headed kids. I'm glad for it. They're wonderful. I just think let's channel that hard-headedness right in the right direction. Then we don't have to worry about them getting kind of, you know, off the path and stuff like that. So celebrate your hard-headed kids. This is a good thing. But our kids are so dang hard-headed, we put some food down in front of them. And when they're little, what happens? Nope, not going to eat it. But what does the lifeguard parent do? The lifeguard parent, man, okay, quickly, mama becomes a short order cook, man. Oh, you don't want to eat that? Well, I cannot let my baby go hungry. I cannot let my baby go hungry, so I got to fix them something to eat. Because, man, I get CPS called on me or something if I don't feed my kids. The fact of the matter is, guys, we have a lot of experience with CPS, not because we've been investigated, but because we foster care. But the reason we have a lot, and believe me, they're not going to take your kids. They want you to have your kids, I promise. They're doing everything they can to make sure the kids stay in your home. So stop fearing that, okay? Don't worry about it. So here's the deal. The lifeguard parent becomes a short order cook, and next thing you know, 5 or 10 years down the road, there's 5 different meals being cooked for one meal. One for mom and dad, one for the oldest, one for the middle, one for the youngest, one for the oops. Guys, that is lifeguard parenting at its finest. I promise you, your kiddo, it's okay for them to be hungry. And it's okay that on the other side of that, you say, hey, it's okay, you don't have to eat, no problem. You get to sit here at the table with us, and then whenever we're all finished, we'll all be excused. And then whenever we go and be excused, whenever you get hungry, this meal will be ready for you. Even if it's the next morning for breakfast. If you want to eat, this is what's available. Lifeguard parenting. This is tough stuff, isn't it? Kid who gets a speeding ticket. Oh man, how many of you are driving or about to drive? Anybody? Yeah, buddy. Woo! This one's for you, my man. All right, so speeding ticket. Teenager, preteen, whatever, they get a speeding ticket. And man, you don't want them to have to go before the judge because that looks bad on you as a parent, doesn't it? No, it looks bad on your child. They made a bad call. They sped, so therefore, they got to pay it. They got to work it out. They got to make this thing happen, right? The lifeguard parent comes in, swoops in, makes sure they make everything smooth over, all that kind of stuff. Nah, no way, man. They need to pay for that ticket. They don't have money to pay for that ticket. They can work for it, and they work for you. This is how it works. They work for you. You are the example of God the Father in their lives. Do you tell God what to do? No way. You know, this last week I was in my office and I was going through all this and I was thinking through this, and Josh Parkhurst walks in. Where's Josh? Right here, big tall guy. Josh, right here. Josh Parkhurst walks in, and we just in the middle of the conversation started having this conversation about these little peppers. And the fact that his son, Caleb, had a really cool experience with these. Now, these are what are called chiltepin, okay? There's a bunch of different names for them, but they're kind of a bird pepper, and they have lots of names for them. But this right here, that little bitty red thing, anybody want one? Because they're really hot. Okay, they're like habanero, hot. You know what I'm saying? And so his son, Josh's son, Caleb, is in the backyard, and Josh learns about these things, realizes that they're hot. He looks at his son, he says, Caleb, make sure you don't eat the peppers. How many of you have little boys? Or how many of you have big boys? What does that big boy or little boy do? Yeah, that's a target, is it not? I'm going to eat me a pepper. Dad said not to, I'm going to go check it out. Proud of this man, because you know what he did? He stood there and watched his son walk right over there, take one off, and pop it in his mouth. Start freaking out, because it's hot. And then Skylar Harpole, who's not here tonight, he normally runs our sound, he's over there with him. And he looks at Caleb, he says, Caleb, don't rub your eyes. To which Caleb tonight told me, these things are really hot. He said, if you rub your eyes, your eye will turn red for about a minute, but it'll burn for like 15. How old's Caleb now? 6 years old. Good job. Well done. Way to let him fail. Way to let him experience. It's actually not a bad thing. This is really, really good. Okay, lifeguard parents. Let's be honest for a second. How many of you guys have ever been guilty of being a lifeguard parent before? Man, thank you for being honest, guys. Thank you. Thank you for being honest. Because I tell you what, it's what we want to do. Because what do we want to do? We want to save them, don't we? We want to prevent them from pain. We want to save them from these experiences. Okay, so you got lifeguard parents. The next one is Etch-a-Sketch parents. These are the parents that are often inconsistent, right? The parents that are often inconsistent. So anybody, you guys know what an Etch-a-Sketch parent is, right? Or you know what an Etch-a-Sketch is? It's that little red box. It's got the little white knobs on it. Okay, and it's really, really cool because these are what are used as computers at Texas A&M. I love all of you so much. All of my friends that are Aggies, I love them. Usually they're pretty smart. These things, I know. There's little things that whenever you turn the knobs, what's it do? It draws a line, doesn't it? But then what happens when you shake it up? The lines go away, and you get to redraw. See, an Etch-a-Sketch parent, one day the rules were one way. And you go to sleep that night, you wake up the next day, and the lines have changed. And your kids are going, where are the boundaries? Where are the lines? Where am I supposed to go? They're trying to bump up against these lines that you've drawn, and they don't exist anymore. And see, this is an inconsistency in parenting. And a lot of us, we've got to be really careful here. Because as Proverbs 29, 15, and 17 says, the rod of correction imparts wisdom. Okay, this is the point. But a child left to himself disgraces his mother. Discipline your son, and he will give you peace. He will bring delight to your soul. Guys, the biggest misnomer in the world is the best friend kind of parent that thinks, I just don't want to discipline my children because I want them to like me. Or I want them to love me. I want them to think I'm cool. I want them to want to be around me, have their friends hang out with me and stuff like that. I want to be that parent. You have to understand that is not what your children want. It is not it. No matter what they tell you, no matter what they say, it is not what they want. Kids thrive within boundaries, but they flounder without them. They thrive within boundaries, but they flounder without them. We've got our two, Samaya and Nariah, right now. And boundaries are such an interesting thing. It's a whole new world for them. Okay, and so they've never had boundaries before. They're living in our home now, and they've got these boundaries. And this is what happens in our home. This is like a broken record over and over and over again. We'll tell one thing, say, okay, make sure that you do this, and then the other one, it's crazy, they'll do the exact opposite to make sure that we will say the same thing to them. So for example, We'll be sitting at the dinner table. We do a lot around the dinner table. So we'll be sitting at the dinner table, and we've got Samaya, and she's sitting up kind of on the back of her booster seat, like she's not buckled in. She's just kind of sitting up on the back. We'll say, hey, Samaya, let's make sure and have her bottom down in the booster seat while we eat dinner tonight. What does Nariah do? Nariah will be down in her booster seat, and she will go ahead and sit up in the back of the booster seat just to see if we will tell her, oh, baby, we need to make sure we sit down in our booster seat also. Now, guys, that's the kind of stuff that will drive you absolutely nuts as a parent. But do you know what's happening there? Making sure that the boundaries exist. Making sure that the lines are consistent. Because if they're not, then they flounder. If they are, there's great security in that. How many of you guys can say, I'm guilty, I've been an Etch-a-Sketch parent before? Establish a line that goes away, you establish another one. Yeah, guys, thank you. Seriously, I really appreciate your honesty tonight because it's tough. Parenting's hard. All right. So we got lifeguard parenting, we got Etch-a-Sketch parenting, and we've got the split decision parents, which are often ununified. You know where I'm going with this one? This is a tough gig. This is where they disagree. Mom and dad aren't on the same page. They disagree. Amos 3:3, do two walk together unless they have agreed to do so? What a great question, right? Do two walk together unless they have agreed to do so? One very important thing we can do as parents is to agree to keep a unified stance in front of our children. We agree to keep a unified stance in front of our children. So important. Now here's the challenge, man. I live in the real world just like you do. And I know that as I sit here and I look across this room, we have a lot of divorce. We have a lot of broken relationships. And as a result of that, it gets complicated, doesn't it? It is hard because, man, the kids learn really quick how to play one parent against the other. I realize some of you guys that are in here, you're not divorced. You're like, yeah, they'll play one against the other, absolutely. But it's exaggerated times 10 in a divorce or a broken relationship. I mean, it's crazy hard. Here's the hard thing. You guys can only control what you do or don't do. And so what I want to encourage you to do is to do everything you can, even if you don't like your ex, even if you don't get along, no matter what it is, everything you can do everything to keep a unified front with the kids. They need this. They need you to keep a unified front with them. Now, it doesn't stop at that because obviously divorce, and then the next step is the Brady Bunch reality, right? The Brady Bunch where we got his, mine, and ours, right? Okay, and so you got the blended families where you got these kids, you got these kids, and then you got these kids. And isn't it such a natural course of action where you say, well, these are my kids, so I'll discipline my kids. These are your kids, so you discipline your kids. And then these are our kids, and we'll discipline our kids together. Guys, I want you to know, when you say yes to marriage, and before God, the two of you become one flesh, there is no more mine and yours. It's unified. You are one flesh. It's ours. No matter what your reality is, it's now ours. You've got to stand unified with all of your children. You know, on Fridays, I love Fridays because Fridays are my day off. And I really enjoy, most of my week is pretty regimented, you know? And so I like, man, it's like I've got my schedule, I got the things I do, I got the meetings I've got all of these things that I have, and I keep a fairly tight schedule throughout the week. And then on Fridays, that's kind of like the day to put the feet up and not do anything and just kind of veg out during the day. Well, you know, it's amazing to me how my children have picked up with the fact that it's probably a lot easier to get a yes from dad on Fridays than it is throughout the week, right? All right, so they've picked up on this like crazy. And on Friday mornings, the very first thing my children love to do is they love to come to me and say, hey, Daddy, can we play on our Kindles, or can we watch a movie, or can we do whatever? And they're asking for what we call in our home screen time. Now, this is something that, you know, it's a big deal. I know all of you are dealing with this with your kids about technology and all that kind of stuff. I will tell you that on Fridays, for a pretty good while, my answer was always, absolutely. Yes, you may, you bet, because what does that mean for me? I get to put my feet up, I get to rest, I get to chill out, all those kinds of things. Well, little did I know, my bride was not down with this. She was not down with this at all, actually, because she then later on came to me and kind of pulled me aside and talked with me and said, you know, Danny, when we allow the children to play on technology or watch movies or those kind of things the majority of the day, do you realize what happens by the afternoon if you looked at the common trend in our home by the afternoon? And she is exactly right. In the afternoon, if our kids have been on technology all day or they've been watching movies all day, by the afternoon they are completely at each other's throats and they are arguing and they are being argumentative with us. When we ask them to get off, and it's a big old battle and trying to have a negotiation and all those kinds of things. It's hard. Here's the thing, and the reason I tell you this story. I tell you this story because I'm so grateful for my bride. Because my bride came to me and she pulled me aside. And we had a conversation, which I didn't even know we weren't unified. I had no idea we weren't unified. But we very much so were not unified. And my bride begins to start talking to me, not only that, if you know my wife, she's going to back up anything and everything she's got with scientific data and how all of that leads to ADHD, and then you've got blah, 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 and you've got all this stuff. And she's going to, I mean, believe me, she's read every article known to man about this stuff. And so she's going to talk to me about all those kind of things. But here's the coolest part. The coolest part is that she pulled me aside, she talked with me. And where we were ununified, we were able to have a conversation with one another. And then we were able to become unified together. So that whenever we came to our children, we would say, no, it's never a mom versus dad, it's always us together. And we're unified together with our children. It's really a beautiful, beautiful thing that she didn't cut my legs out from under me. I'm really grateful for her for that. How many of you guys have been guilty of being ununified before with your spouse? Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough as a parent, and I really appreciate, again, your honesty. And so here's the deal. The hard truth simply is undisciplined parents equal undisciplined children. Undisciplined children are a result of undisciplined parents. That's it. That's the hard truth here. The more challenging thing is many undisciplined parents aren't even aware of it. Not even aware. Don't realize it's happening. And so I hope tonight, as we kind of went through these three little categories, I hope that it helped. I hope it's something that did help to kind of give you maybe something to talk about to where otherwise the conversation may not have occurred. But see, the thing is that I don't really want to spend all of tonight talking about how we're failing. I really want to spend a lot of time tonight, or not a lot of time, I want to spend the rest of our time tonight talking about some good and positive expectations that we should have of our children, we also should have of ourselves. And so we're just going to talk about these things and we'll get on through them, okay? So expectation number one, okay? We want to make sure that we expect first time and cheerful obedience. Guys, this is a way that we can honor our children. This is a way that we can teach our children to honor us. Because remember, when we honor our kids, what are we looking for? Somebody remember? What is honor? Treating someone as special. So say it. Treating someone as? Yep. Going beyond expectations, exactly. And then the last thing is do it with a good attitude. That's exactly right. So this is the way we do this, is how we honor our children, and it's the way that we can teach them to honor us. We expect first time and cheerful obedience. Colossians 3:20. Children, obey your parents in just a couple of things, a couple of categories. No, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord. You notice how Scripture goes. Scripture doesn't say obey your parents when they look at you and go 1, 2, 2.5, 2.5, half for you, 3. Oh, it sits there and says, Children, obey your parents in everything. I remember the day that Rachel and I had that conversation. We were at Walmart. We saw this kiddo that ran right out in the street, and thank goodness the car saw it because it was able to stop in time without hitting him. And I remember that conversation with Rachel. Elizabeth was like little bitty. She wasn't even walking yet. We were like, man, we've got to make sure that when we say stop, our children stop. And so then there came the day it got put to the test, right? It came that day. We're in the Walmart parking lot, the same parking lot. And Elizabeth decides she needs to go. And there's a car coming. You see it in slow motion, right? You just see this thing coming, and it's like, oh my gosh. Go, Elizabeth, stop! And thank goodness she planted it, and that car, boom, right in front of her. Can you imagine if we just said, Elizabeth, stop! 1, 2, first time and cheerful obedience, just as God expects this from us. Oh man, see, that's where it's the hardest thing, because as we look and we see how we're disciplining and we're creating these boundaries for our kids, we have to understand this is what God expects of us. So it's not just us bossing our kids around, it's understanding the love of God the Father for us saying, hey, please, come on, honor me. Come on. I love you. I'll lay my life down for you. I honor you. Please honor me. First time in cheerful obedience, please. We get the privilege of living that out as we expect that from our kids. Now see, Elizabeth stopping right then and there at the street or at the curb before the car came, that's what we would call outward obedience, right? There's an obvious sign that everyone in the world can see that there's outward obedience. You know, the hard part here is that a lot of parents will stop right there. They're perfectly fine. As long as kiddos are behaving and they're doing what they say, they're perfectly fine. When all the while the kiddo inside is cussing them up a storm. It looks like they're obeying, but inside, their heart is as dark as can be. And they're growing resentful, and they're growing frustrated with mom and dad. And this, my friends, looking into the crystal ball, is what happens when kids go to college, and all of a sudden, party! Outward obedience versus inward obedience. Philippians 2:14, do everything without complaining or arguing. Guys, it's like a heart condition, right? It's like if we've got a heart condition, you're like a ticking time bomb on the inside, but everything on the outside may look perfectly fine. We've got to be careful about this. This is why it's important for us to discipline more for attitude than for actions. Discipline our kids more for their attitude than for their actions. Most of the time we focus on the action, but I'm going to tell you guys, the attitude is far more important than the actions. Because with the attitude change, the actions will come. Discipline more for attitude than actions. We want to expect first time and cheerful obedience. If it doesn't come, we'll talk about this in a second. If it doesn't come, let them try again. Let them try again, over and over and over again. So first thing, we expect first time and cheerful obedience. Second thing is we agree never to discipline our kids when we're angry. Never. If you are angry, don't try to discipline your children. Because if you are trying to discipline your children and you're hacked off, this is when bad things happen. This is when not good words come out of your mouth. This is when not good actions with your body language. This is when not good actions with your hands and all those kinds of things. Bad things happen. Ephesians 4:26. In your anger, do not sin. Because remember, if you discipline in that way, what message are you sending about the love of God the Father to your children? And what does Scripture say about a person who prevents a child from coming to God the Father? It's better for them to have what? A millstone hung around their neck and dropped in the sea. Do not discipline your children in anger. This is very important, guys. This is big. This is huge. When we get angry, bad things happen. I'm a classic example of this. Driving. What happens if you get in an argument with your spouse while you're driving? Huh? Or your kids are going nuts in the car. What happens at the stoplight? Brake check, you know, and you get like, and then whenever you get angry, mad and everything, what happens when the light turns green? All of a sudden you're going to see what this car can do, right? And you're going around the corners, and all your kids are like, whoa, you know, it's like the woo, la, ride roller coaster, right? No, they don't want to have anything to do with that, because what happens in your car? It's deathly what? Silent. Because you're freaking them out. And the only thing you're doing is wasting gas and setting a terrible example. It's the only thing that's happening. Only thing. You have to agree never to discipline in anger. Because when anger comes, this is when the consequences, like, you're grounded for a week, come from. Really? A week? You're grounded for a week? Come on, parents. All that does is discipline you. All that does is make it to where you got to follow through with that for a full week. And then if you're really angry, what ends up happening after that? You want some more? Huh? Well, just say no again. You say no again, I'm giving you more. The next thing you know, they can't sleep a lot a day for all the summer. You know what I mean? And then you're stuck with making sure you follow through with that. And what happens 9 times out of 10? Etch a sketch, parent. Here's your line. I'm kidding. Let's go to SeaWorld. What message does that send about the love of God the Father to your children? You're grounded for a week. Man, when we discipline in anger, whoo, bad things happen. First time in cheerful obedience. Number 2, never discipline in anger. And then the last one we're going to talk about tonight is we want to discipline promptly with instruction and reconciliation. This kind of flies in the face of the week-long thing, right? Discipline promptly with instruction and reconciliation. This is my favorite part of the whole night. Ephesians 6:4. Fathers, do not exasperate. Don't hack off your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. 2 words. Training and instruction. Big time here, okay? Big time. Many times your children don't even know what they did wrong. Many times. They don't have a clue. Many times, kids don't even know. And do you remember one of the truths that we talked about last week? What is one of the things that has to be unchanging in us? Encouraging talk with our children. And if we get all hacked off, we get all burned up, and we're all going crazy, and then we start flying off at the handle, and we don't handle things in the moment. If we discipline without training and instruction, then you will exasperate, you will frustrate your children, which does not lead to obedience. It only leads to deception, because then they do it when you're not looking. Many times your kids don't even know what they've done wrong. That's why they need training and they need instruction. How many of you guys have been here before? You hear the disturbance in the other room. You hear the voices begin to escalate. You know that there's a fight going on in the other room. You know it's probably over a toy, whatever. You walk in the room and the girl's holding the Barbie doll and say, he took my Barbie doll, so I yanked it back from him and smacked him in the head with it. Anybody been there before? Oh yeah, good. We're not alone. Thank you for making me feel better. Awesome. But then what do? Go to your room and think about what you've done. Really? What kid does that? What kid goes to his room and goes, you know what, I wonder, I think I probably should have handled that differently. I should have used my words. I should have made sure it had gentle hands. Next time I really think I'll make sure and what kid does that? No, they go to their room and like, sweet, got away with that. I'm out, I'm good. I just got paroled, whatever. Train and instruct. The Center for Relational Care gives us great instructions here. So you're not on your own on this. This isn't one of those things that you're left out in the cold trying to figure out. First thing, we look at a child promptly. What did you do wrong? You see, the child many times doesn't even know. But when we ask, what did you do wrong? And they have to think about it for just a second. What did I do wrong? You mean I did something wrong? And then we get a chance to talk through that. First question, what did you do wrong? Next question, why was it wrong? Because they might not even have any idea. Oh, wait, so now we've talked about that I did this, and apparently this is wrong, but they don't have a clue why it's wrong. Well, so now we got to talk about why it's wrong. Why was that wrong? They get an opportunity to process that, work through that. Third question, what should you do differently next time? What should you do differently next time? Gosh, I don't know. I didn't know that anything was wrong. Now I realize it was wrong. I don't know why it was wrong, but now I realize why it was wrong. So what should I do differently next time? Really? They begin to process through these things. They begin to work through all of this. And you know what? There's all kinds of different behavior that's taking place through all this. There's yelling, screaming, frustration, all that kind of stuff. And you give them time to work through that. When they're ready to talk, you can come back and approach that question again. And then the last question is great. Or excuse me, the last statement actually is great. It's now. Go and do differently. Go and make it right. And then your child gets to go, as you've instructed them, they get to go to the person that they've offended or the person that they've done whatever to, and they get to go and they say, you know, I'm really sorry that I hit you in the face with a Barbie doll. Because I realize that's wrong. Because it's disrespectful to you. And I did not honor you with my actions. Next time I'm going to do this, you know, I'm going to use my words next time with you. Will you please forgive me? And then the beautiful part is then just what Darren prayed before the message tonight. There's redemption. Because there's reconciliation that takes place in that moment. And they get a chance to hug. They get a chance to be together. They get a chance to let it go and never bring it up again. Be released from it. Guys, this is one of those things that takes time, does it not? This is hard work. But what it requires is what we talked about last week with abundant time and a loving touch. And here's why this one's so important. The reason this one is so important because this sends the right message about our relationship with the Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ. This is what sends the message that is planted within our child, this understanding that the cross of Jesus Christ was necessary. The cross of Jesus Christ is what it's all about. When they begin to start to understand, probably subconsciously from an initial standpoint, right? And then later on, they begin to understand at a deeper level that sin must be punished. All sin on the planet must be punished. It deserves punishment. And thank God Jesus took that punishment for us. Thank God Jesus took that. And then once we believe it, once they believe it, then God declares us forgiven. He declares that we're forgiven because that justice has now been satisfied. And then until it teaches our children that the principles of God's economy are the truth, even before they're even able to understand those economics. It's so important here. Because someday then, they will be able to say, yes, I am a sinner and I deserve death. But thank goodness because of Jesus Christ, I've been given life. And I've been given another chance. There is redemption. There's restoration. There's relationship. And so you guys, do you see how parenting, do you see how disciplining is not something we do to our kids, but it's something that we do for our children? This is why tonight we talked about the fact that discipline is correction that is driven by love. But please understand, I'm not saying it's driven by your love. I'm saying discipline is driven by the love of the Father to you as imperfect people, through you to your children to teach the truth about who Jesus Christ is. Discipline's important. Those boundaries are important because it sends a very clear message. Let's pray together. Lord, I thank you for tonight. I thank you for our time together. And I pray, Lord, that you would convict us in a way that only you can do. But Lord, then I pray that you help us to work through that and realize that that conviction leads to freedom. And that conviction leads to hope. And that conviction leads to unconditional love. And that conviction leads to forgiveness and life. And so Lord, I pray as you help us tonight, as we look at this, we think all through our parenting styles, we think back through how our parents parented us, the things that we're continuing on that may be unhealthy, the things that we're not continuing that perhaps we need to add in, and the things that we need to do differently because you have shown us a new way. And so Lord, I pray that that is something that is in and through each and every one of us. Help us, please, Lord, to send a clear message of who you are. And the love, the true picture of your love for us. Lord, we love you and we thank you. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Tonight, guys, as you're kind of responding during this next little bit, we're going to sing this song. Y'all hear it right now. How He Loves. And man, the challenge of us getting the privilege of sending that message to our kids and making sure that from us, we're sending that message appropriately. The question for you tonight is, as a parent, are you more characterized by being a rescuing parent? By being inconsistent, or perhaps maybe being ununified with their mom or their dad? And what's the characterization and how can you improve? How do you do better? Because that's what God wants for us. He wants us to do better and to do differently. The question is, what is God showing you tonight about discipline? Do you have an anger problem when it comes to discipline? Are you instructing? Are you offering training and reconciliation with your kids? Where are you tonight? What does God need to change in you for you to better discipline your children? And so what we want to do is, band's going to lead us in this song, an amazing song, but I hope that you'll allow these words to just infiltrate every part of you and to allow them to soak in and receive that unconditional love from God the Father and help see yourself the way He sees you. So you guys, let's stand to our feet and let's respond.
And He is jealous for me. Love's like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of His wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipse my glory.